The date is May 13th, 2019. Jennifer Dickerson, David Myers are interviewing Nancy Fiveland. Nancy, can you please tell us your name, the city where you grew up, and who lived with you as you were growing up?
Okay, my name is Nancy Fiveland. It used to be Ross, and I was born at the community hospital in Riverside, and I've lived here my entire life, and I love this city. And I first lived in High Grove, which was a little town between Riverside and Grand Terrace. So,
And what was the area that you grew up in like? Were there very many orange groves? Were there a lot of people?
there were not a lot of people, but there were many orange groves. I could look right out my front door, and right across the street was an orange grove. There was a railroad track here that was a spur that went up to the railroad, the packing houses to pick up the train loads of oranges to take them back to the main line and then on to their destination. But oh, there were orange groves all over here. I walked to school and walked right past orange groves. On this side of the street were orange groves. On this side of the street were, on the left side, you can't see my hand, on the left side were packing houses.
Did you or any of your family members work in the citrus industry?
Yes. Well, my grandmother mostly did. My mother did part-time because she was a homemaker, and she worked part-time. They did grading, I think, which you know what that is. That's grading the size of the oranges, and they were put into special bins so that when they were ready to pack them and put them into boxes, they had pretty much the same size orange would be in the same box because it packed easier that way, I think. Then, of course, my dad worked for the railroad in Colton. His job was to inspect the refrigerator cars that took the oranges in their crates, took them out of the area and took them, my goodness, to the White House and to wherever else they took oranges, you know. But so I guess I had brothers and sisters that did not work in the orange industry, and I never did other than whatever. But my parents and my grandmother did.
How did they feel about their work in the citrus industry?
Oh my goodness, it was lovely. Well, working around oranges smells wonderful. If you ever walked into a packing house, it was wonderful. It had hardwood floors, which has a special smell of its own. It's kind of like going back to school. And it smelled so good. And then the oranges were so strong. And that was always there. And it was a wonderful smell. We loved it. And I think they liked it. I didn't remember my parents ever complaining about it, so they must have liked it.
What do you remember most about the citrus industry? Do you have any stories of growing up around citrus?
Oh yeah, I do. Probably the earliest one, when I think I might have been about 3 years old. We lived in a house. Our bedrooms were on a screened porch, if you can imagine that. During the winter, they just would put down blinds that would keep us warm. And so during the night, I remember specifically as a little girl, I was awakened, and the growers were getting the trees ready to fumigate. And they do that during the night, which I don't know why, but I guess it was more practical. And so I cried, and of course my mother got me up and she let me look out the window, and I could see up to the groves where the orange trees were, and they were all covered with tarps. And I saw those and I thought they were elephants. It scared me so much. I just thought those elephants were going to come down and get me. But of course they didn't. But that was my first real example of living around an orange grove.
How did the citrus industry impact your life and your upbringing?
Oh my, I can't imagine it not. It was just so, it was so close. As a child, because of the groves being so close, the kids, we all wanted to play in the groves. And so our mothers asked the growers permission for us to be able to go into the groves and pick oranges. Okay, this was the requirement. We could go in there except when they were irrigating. We could not go. We could pick the oranges as long as we ate them all. You did not throw an orange on the ground unless it was rotten, and I have never seen a rotten orange. So anyhow, we used to, during the summer, we'd go out into the groves and just play all day. And we didn't come in. My mother didn't worry about us because she knew we were having oranges for lunch, and she didn't worry. She just left us alone as long as we were not hurt. We were not hurting anything, and we loved it. Yep.
How long did your parents work in the citrus industry?
Well, see, we lived in High Grove until I was in the 7th grade, so I was 12. I don't think my mother worked in the citrus industry after we moved into Riverside.
Do you know what year that would have been?
Okay, I was born in 1934. Now add 12 to that.
46.
Okay, so we moved in 46. And I think she had a couple of part-time jobs after that, but one was in the meat packing, so it wasn't orange. And I don't think she ever worked in the orange industry after that.
Can you tell us the stories of how you used to visit the packing house?
Oh, yes. Going to school in High Grove, like I said, we walked up past the orange groves and the packing houses to go to school. And so on the way home, we'd stop by the packing houses because most of the kids that lived there had relatives that worked in the packing house. So we could walk by and say, "Hi, we're going home," and they'd remind us to do our homework and whatever parents do. And we'd go clear to the back part of the packing house, and one of the boys' uncles worked back there, and they had some bins that they saved these huge oranges in that would come from the top of the trees. They were almost the size of your head. They were so big. They had a very thick skin, but oh my goodness, they were so juicy and sweet, but they couldn't pack them because, you know, who wants to buy a big orange like that in the grocery store? You don't do that. But we would go by there and we'd each get an orange to eat on the way home. You know how hungry you are after school? And of course we were warned, if we see one of those oranges broken on the road, you're not getting any more. So we had to eat all the orange, and they were really, really good. it was fun to go into the packing house because it was such a big place, and you know, there were plenty of people there to see that we didn't get into trouble. But we just walked way back into the back part and felt like we were something special.
Can you describe what the packing house looked like on the inside? What was going on there?
Oh, long rows of ladies working, mostly ladies. Now, the men worked kind of on the outskirts, like this one uncle that worked there in the back. If anything broke down, well, they'd be there to fix it. The women were doing the various jobs that had to be done to take care of the oranges in order to pack them. And so they were in sections. Like I said, my grandmother and mother, I think they did grading. And then there were other ladies that just did the packing of the oranges. And oh my goodness, their hands worked so fast, and they'd grab a piece of tissue, it looked like tissue paper to me, I don't know, and wrap this orange and put it in the box, and they were all put in there very neatly. I think every box had probably the same amount of oranges in it. And then as soon as they were through, they shove it on down the line, take another box, start over again. I think it might have been very boring, but that's just me. I don't think they thought it. There were a lot of Mexican ladies that worked there because there were a lot of Mexican men that worked in the groves. And so, and of course I went to school with their kids, and I just loved them, and they were wonderful. But it was just a fun place to be. I loved growing up in High Grove, and you know, you were engulfed with oranges. I loved that. Yeah.
How has the landscape changed since you were a child? Are there more people or less trees or citrus?
Yeah. There are more people. Of course, they needed more houses for these people because people don't live in orange groves. And that's the sad part. They had to cut out the orange groves. I think some of the orange groves that they took out were old. But I think they took out orange groves that weren't old, and that always broke my heart to see them. I mean, all of a sudden you'd go down Victoria, and here's a whole grove had been taken out, and then they were going to build houses there. So that's hard on a person from Riverside and High Grove to see, because that's where we lived, and I did not like to see it.
Is there anything else you want to say about citrus, the industry, growing up in the area?
It was fun. Did you ever hear of L.V.W. Brown? Really? He was one of the largest citrus growers, I guess, in this area. And he also owned a packing house. So he was pretty important. Let's see, where I live now on the Wood Streets. Do you know where 3rd and Kansas is? Well, he lived over in that area. And he had a big house, and us kids thought, oh, if we could just go over there and visit him, that would be so exciting. And I think we went. We never did meet him, but it was kind of fun to think that we'd even gotten on his property, because he was rich. You know, when you're kids, you think that's really something special. So Oh, I can't think of anything. Did I tell you anything else that you want me to remind you about? Yeah, it was just a lovely time to grow up. I would not trade it for anything.
Fantastic.
You're awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, good. So you liked it okay?